What does it take to survive when the world turns dry and barren? When the rains vanish and the fields turn to dust, survival becomes a daily struggle. For most of history, the difference between life and death was a handful of grains, just enough to last until the next sunrise. Drought is a slow disaster, quietly erasing the foods that define a culture. In their place, a desperate menu appears, dictated by what's left, not by choice. The history of humanity is a story of adapting to scarcity. When crops failed, people didn't give up. They searched for anything that could provide calories. The familiar became precious, the overlooked became essential. The very definition of food was stretched to its limit. This wasn't a choice, it was survival. Our ancestors learned to leach toxins from roots, grind bark into flour, and find nourishment in unlikely places. These aren't just stories of deprivation, they're accounts of knowledge and resilience. When faced with starvation, people made the inedible edible, the unpalatable survivable. It's a testament to our will to endure, to hope for rain, and to plant another seed. This journey into survival food isn't about misery, it's about ingenuity. It's about the resilience baked into our DNA. Against all odds, people have always found a way forward. The story of survival is the story of hope, written in every handful of grains. 14th century Europe. Before the plagues, there was famine. Too much rain ruined crops, then droughts followed, emptying granaries and sending wheat prices soaring. When bread disappeared, people turned to the earth itself. Bark was stripped from trees, grass and roots were boiled for hours, and weeds became vital food. This wasn't foraging for flavor, it was a desperate scramble for calories. Hunger tested the bonds of community, pushing people to impossible choices. Livestock vanished, pets became food, and seeds meant for planting were eaten to survive. Every meal was a gamble between immediate relief and future hope. The taste of survival was bitter, gritty, and unsatisfying. The famine exposed the fragility of a food system built on a few staple crops. When wheat and barley failed, there was no safety net. War, poor governance, and lack of infrastructure turned a natural disaster into a human one. The lesson was clear. Diversity in the fields and on the plate is essential. The memory of eating bark and grass haunted generations, a reminder of how quickly abundance can vanish. Scarcity revealed the thin line between civilization and chaos. The Great Famine left scars, but also lessons in resilience. It showed how people adapt, endure, and remember. Even in the darkest times, survival was possible. The story of famine is a story of impossible choices, and the will to keep going. Hunger rewrites the rules of what it means to be human. The Dust Bowl, 1930s America, an ecological collapse, not just a drought. With crops gone and the land stripped bare, families became foragers on their own farms. Tumbleweeds, once a symbol of desolation, became food, bitter but edible. Jackrabbits, called Hoover hogs, were hunted for every scrap of meat. Government relief helped, but it was never enough. Real innovation happened in kitchens. Mock apple pies from crackers, soups thickened with flour, and wild plums canned for hope. The Dust Bowl diet was about making something from nothing. It was survival, not abundance. Every meal was a testament to ingenuity and grit. Cooking with tumbleweeds and hunting rabbits became stories of strength, not just poverty. The experience changed how people saw food. Waste was unthinkable, creativity essential. The Dust Bowl left a legacy of resilience. It showed that survival is about adaptation, not just endurance. Even when the world turned to dust, families found ways to feed each other. These stories are chronicles of stubborn hope. They remind us that even in the harshest times, people refuse to be defeated. Survival is an act of everyday courage. In drought, not all grains are equal. Some are built for survival. Millet and sorghum, tough and drought-resistant, have fed millions in arid regions for millennia. They thrive where wheat and rice fail, growing in poor soil with little water. Millet matures quickly, can be made into bread or porridge, and is packed with nutrients. Barley, another survivor, tolerates harsh conditions and has been a staple from ancient Egypt to Rome. When drought struck, these grains were often the last crop standing. Corn, especially traditional varieties, could be dried and stored, ground into mesa, or made into grits. Nixtamalization unlocked corn's nutrition, preventing disease and sustaining communities. These grains weren't glamorous, but they were reliable. They were the backbone of survival, asking little and giving just enough. In times of scarcity, the humble grains kept hope alive. Survival depended on knowing which crops could endure when nothing else would. When fields are bare, survival means looking closer at the wild plants we usually ignore. Foraging becomes a lifeline, relying on deep knowledge of what's safe and nourishing. Dandelions, purslane, lamb's quarters, once dismissed as weeds, now vital sources of nutrition. These native plants thrive in tough conditions, offering vitamins and minerals when crops fail. Foraging isn't random, it's a science passed down through generations. Roots, tubers, seeds, and nuts become essential. The San people of southern Africa survive on underground tubers. Native Americans turned acorns into flour. Wild foods require work and patience, but they're a direct connection to the land. Foraging is about stewardship, taking only what's needed, ensuring the ecosystem recovers. This knowledge is survival wealth, more valuable than gold in a famine. The unseen harvest is a reminder. Sometimes the most valuable resources are right under our feet. In drought, knowing the land's secrets can mean the difference between life and death. In the worst droughts, even wild plants disappear, leaving nothing but desperation. This is where survival pushes past the imaginable. People have boiled leather, belts, shoes, harnesses, hoping for a few calories. The process is grim, the reward meager, but starvation makes anything seem edible. Some have eaten clay, a practice called geophagy, to fill their stomachs and extract trace minerals. Clay can bind toxins, but it's a dangerous gamble. These choices come with risks, digestive problems, poisoning, or worse. Eating leather or clay isn't sustainable, it's a last resort. These stories aren't just about strange foods. They're about the power of hunger to override instinct and disgust. When the earth offers nothing, survival becomes a desperate act of will. Even at the edge, people fight for one more day. Survival food is rarely delicious, often bitter, gritty, or bland. Acorns, full of tannins, required days of leaching to become edible, yet always retained a hint of bitterness. Dandelion greens, boiled to reduce their bite, became a staple in famine, not a delicacy. Millet and sorghum, coarse and dense, filled stomachs but reminded people of hardship. In many cultures, these foods were associated with poverty, not choice. The texture and taste were constant reminders of survival, not abundance. In times of scarcity, flavor is a luxury. Calories and safety come first. The bitter taste of survival is the taste of resilience. It's about recalibrating expectations, accepting food as fuel. Every gritty bite is another day of life, another chance for rain. Survival means embracing what's available, no matter how it tastes. The flavor of hope is sometimes bitter, but it keeps people going. In hardship, even the blandest meal is a victory. Surviving drought leaves a mark on culture, shaping traditions, cuisines, and attitudes toward food. Foods once eaten out of desperation become symbols of heritage and resilience. No waste philosophies emerge. Every part of plant and animal is used. Recipes for stale bread, pickling, and broths are legacies of lean times. The memory of famine fosters respect for food and the land. Wasting food becomes taboo, a dishonor to ancestors who starved. Communal practices, food sharing, community granaries, harvest rituals, grow from shared hardship. Scarcity teaches adaptation and creativity. Famine foods are edible monuments to human resilience. They remind us that even in the hardest times, people find ways to endure and share. What have we learned from centuries of drought and hunger? People have eaten bark, tumbleweeds, millet, and acorns, not as victims, but as survivors. The common thread is adaptation, turning the inedible into sustenance. Preparing a meal, no matter how meager, is an act of hope and defiance. Our modern abundance is built on the lessons of scarcity. Drought teaches the value of diversity, local knowledge, and resilience. The story of survival food is the story of humanity, struggle, innovation, and strength. Food is more than sustenance, it's culture, history, and a testament to our will to endure. Even in the harshest times, people gather, share, and hope for another day. The bitter taste of survival is also the flavor of hope. The human spirit finds a way, always. Every meal, no matter how humble, is a victory. This is the story of us, served up on a plate.